The next day was a Sunday. Eli barely slept. When morning came, he dragged himself into the shower and ate a bland breakfast, staring at the wall as the sun crept slowly through his cheap apartment blinds. The light hit the dust in the air and scattered. It didn't feel like a new day. It just felt like yesterday hadn't ended yet. He did not open the system to sign in. He did not want to. But unfortunately, it opened for him. With a slight sound, the familiar translucent screen flickered to life right in front of him. New task available. A child in the Westbridge market is lost and frightened. Help her find her way home. Reward none. Time limit 2 hours. Penalty for failure 2,000 yuan. Eli blinked at it. He hesitated. After everything that had happened the day before, he wasn't sure he wanted to get involved with anything at all. But something about those words, a child, lost and frightened, tugged at something inside him. Maybe this was the system's way of offering him a second chance. He quickly got dressed and got on his scooter. The market district was busy, chaotic. Street vendors shouted over one another, scooters zipped past with inches to spare, and the air was thick with the smell of spices, grease, and ripe fruit. Eli moved through the crowd quietly, asking around, showing people the system's vague description. It didn't take long. A butcher near the back of the market pointed toward an alley beside a fabric shop. "There's a kid who's been sitting there for over an hour," he said, crying her eyes out. Eli followed the direction and found her. She was no older than 8. Her face was streaked with tears, her knees were scuffed, and she was clinging to a stuffed rabbit like it was the only steady thing in the world. She looked up as Eli approached. "Hi," he said gently, crouching down to her level. "Are you okay? Did you lose someone?" She nodded silently, eyes wide. "Can I help you find your mom or dad?" She hesitated, then gave a small, shaky nod. It turned out she had simply gotten separated in the crowd. She gave Eli her mother's name and a nearby cafe where they'd planned to meet. Eli took her small hand in his and led her carefully through the press of people, stopping to ask shopkeepers, scanning faces, moving patiently. And then a panicked woman came rushing around a corner, eyes wide with terror, then pure flooding relief. "Zairoyu," she cried, scooping the girl into her arms. She looked up at Eli, nearly in tears. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done." Before Eli could reply, the system buzzed quietly in his mind. Task completed. No reward. Level 1, 80% complete. Eli didn't even care about the money. As he watched the reunited pair disappear into the crowd, the weight on his chest seemed to lift just a little. Helping didn't undo his mistakes, but it reminded him that he could still do something good. Later that afternoon, Eli found himself walking with his hands in his pockets, soaking in the warm sun. The air felt lighter. The streets felt less like a burden. For once, he wasn't thinking about chores or money or his mistakes. He walked past a street musician playing a sad tune on an old guitar. The notes floated between the buildings like a memory of something he couldn't quite name. Then he turned a corner and saw it. A bright red poster taped to a lamppost. All-you-can-eat karaoke night, snacks, drinks and a working mic, maybe, 50 yuan entry. Eli's stomach grumbled on cue. He checked his balance. He could afford it without stressing, and for once, just once, he felt like saying yes to something that wasn't about survival. The karaoke spot was sandwiched between a bubble tea shop and a shabby arcade, but inside it was lit up with neon, lined with cozy couches and filled with the smell of fried dumplings and cola. People were laughing, belting out pop songs at full volume, and someone was already out cold in a beanbag chair with a chicken skewer still in hand. Eli grabbed a plate and a mic. He told himself he'd just eat and listen. But after a few songs and some cheap soda, he found himself pushed up to the front. He ended up singing an old rock ballad. His voice cracked halfway through the high note, but everyone clapped anyway. And for the first time in a long while, Eli was laughing so hard his stomach hurt. At some point, someone placed a plastic crown on his head and dubbed him, officially, King of Dumpling Rock. He wore it for the rest of the night, without a care in the world. Later, as the sky deepened into rich blue and the city lights flickered on all around him, Eli walked home with a small box of leftover dumplings in one hand and the plastic crown still perched on his head. The system was quiet, no urgent tasks, just the sound of his footsteps on the pavement and a rare, fleeting feeling of calm. Maybe life wasn't perfect, maybe old Gao still weighed him down. But tonight had reminded him of something important. He was still alive. And sometimes that was all that mattered. The next morning, Eli woke up, showered quickly, ate toast on the way out, and signed into the system almost without thinking. The bank notification had come in overnight, and seeing the number gave him a small buzz of excitement. At work, the Golden Walk was as loud and chaotic as ever. Mr. Han was in a worse mood than usual, barking orders over the clatter of pans and the mountain of dirty dishes left unattended. Midway through his shift, while he was in the kitchen washing dishes, calling out orders, Eli's phone vibrated. It was the hospital. He set the dishes down, answered. Your mother's condition has worsened. We suggest coming in as soon as possible. Eli immediately started pulling off his apron. His hands moved fast. Beads of sweat crawled down the back of his neck. He knew he could only hope that nothing happened before he got there. Just as he reached the back door of the kitchen, Mr. Han stormed in. Where do you think you're going? The hospital just called, Eli said quietly. My mother's condition got worse. I need to leave now. Han folded his arms. So you think you can just walk out in the middle of rush hour? And who exactly are you planning to leave your work for? I'm sorry, but I need to leave. If you leave, Han said, his voice flat and certain, there will be a 50% pay cut. Eli froze. 10,000 yuan a day felt big, but his expenses were bigger. Rent, medical bills, the dream of a business, the constant unpredictability of the system. 50% was not a small loss. But his mother had always sacrificed everything for him. He hesitated. Then he said it. Cut it, I'm going. His co-workers went still. Mr. Han stared. Eli, who had always been quiet, who had always given everything to his job, who had absorbed every cruelty without complaint, had just stood up. Mr. Han sneered and turned away. The rest of you get back to work. And Eli walked out. Part 5, the Jaymson family. He arrived at the hospital out of breath. The nurse at the front desk directed him to Ward C16, the common ward. Wait, Eli said. I paid for the exclusive ward. What is she doing in the common ward? I understand your concern, sir. Some complications arose. What complications? The Jaymson family has reserved full control of floors 4 through 6. Eli blinked. They have connections with a major shareholder, she continued, her voice professionally neutral. They paid a significant sum. We had no choice but to relocate the other patients, including your mother. Eli stood very still. The Jamesons, he knew the name. Jameson's Fashions, a luxury brand with a total market value of 2.1 billion yuan. There had been rumors online recently. Their patriarch was gravely ill. There was infighting among the heirs about who would take over. He knew he couldn't go up against them, not today, not yet. That thought sat in his chest like a stone. He made his way to his mother's ward. On the way, he passed patients in wheelchairs being rolled out into crowded lobbies. An elderly man coughing violently while a nurse tried to set up a portable bed beside a vending machine. Then a convoy of suited men walking briskly past, guarding an elevator. And behind them, the family itself. A middle-aged man and woman holding the hand of a small child, a young man in branded clothes probably around Eli's age, a young woman clearly in her 20s effortlessly elegant. All of them carried an invisible weight, the kind that came not from burden but from power, the kind that made ordinary people instinctively step aside. The young man glanced at Eli. The look lasted half a second. It said everything. Eli kept walking. His mother's room was shared now, crowded with other patients. It wasn't what he'd paid for, but as long as she was here, as long as she was breathing, he wouldn't take it to heart. He sat next to her. She was paler than the last time he'd visited. Dr. Damey came in a few minutes later and spotted Eli immediately. Eli, how are you holding up? How is she? Apart from the complications during the move, she's stable. I'm sorry we had to relocate her. They gave us no choice. I know, Eli said quietly. That's just how Dragon City works. He stayed with her for a long time. When he finally left, he already knew what he was going to do. Back at his apartment, Eli picked up his phone and dialed. It rang twice, then. Hello, Eli. Mr. Han's voice was smug, almost bored. You calling to apologize, to beg me to reinstate your original pay? Well, that's not happening. No, asterisk, Eli said. His voice was steady. I'm calling to let you know that I'm quitting. I won't be in tomorrow. A long silence stretched between them. Then, okay, thanks for letting me know. Eli hung up the phone and exhaled. Mr. Han knew somewhere in the back of his mind that Eli had been his best worker, the one who never complained, who absorbed every harsh word, who showed up no matter the conditions, and today, of all days, he had walked away. Eli sat in the quiet of his apartment for a moment. Then he breathed again, slowly. He had finally left a place that had made him miserable for far too long, and with that, he began making a plan for the next day. Eli was nearly done with his deliveries that night when he spotted someone slumped outside a shuttered convenience store. A teenage boy, 15, maybe 16, curled up beside a torn backpack, hoodie pulled low over his face. A hand-drawn cardboard sign rested beside him. Ran away, just need food. Most people passed without a glance. Eli slowed his scooter. You all right? He asked, keeping his helmet on. No answer. Eli cut the engine, removed the helmet and crouched down. The boy looked up. His eyes were red and puffy from crying or the cold or both. His lips were chapped. He looked utterly spent. You hungry? The boy nodded once, cautious. A flicker in Eli's vision, the system. Task, unknown person in need. Reward, none. Punishment, none. Time limit, none. Eli frowned inwardly. No reward, no punishment, and no deadline. Why even show up? But his hands were already moving. He handed the kid a still warm box of fried rice. Here, I'm Eli. The boy took it with both hands like it was gold. What's your name? A pause. Jin. You want to tell me what happened? Jin kept eating, barely meeting his eyes. Home wasn't safe, I can't go back. The way he said it, flat, low but trembling, told Eli everything. This wasn't teenage rebellion, something had gone wrong. Tell you what, asterisk, Eli said softly. It's late, you can crash at my place tonight. Tomorrow we figure something out. Jin hesitated, his eyes darted to the road behind him. Then slowly he nodded. Eli's apartment was humble, a mattress on the floor, a second-hand couch, faded posters and flickering lights, but it was warm. Put your stuff by the couch, asterisk, Eli said, rummaging for a spare blanket. Bathroom's there, shower if you want. Jin mumbled a thanks. His eyes kept scanning the corners of the room, like he expected something to jump out. Eli made instant noodles. They ate in silence. You can have the bed, asterisk, Eli said later. I'll take the couch. That night while Jin slept, Eli lay awake staring at the ceiling. The system panel was dark, but something didn't sit right. Who was Jin running from? The next morning, they rode Eli's scooter through cold streets to the police station. Excuse me, asterisk, Eli told the officer at the front desk. I think I found a runaway. The officer looked at Jin, then looked at the wall of missing children posters behind him. His eyes widened slightly. Wait here, I'll get someone. Two detectives led them into a private room. Standard questions, where Jin was found, what he said, any signs of injury. Then the door opened again. A man and woman in their 40s rushed in. The woman was crying. The man looked angry but was working hard to disguise it as concern. Jin, the woman gasped, moving toward him. But Eli saw it. Jin flinched. Not a small twitch, a full-body jerk, like someone who had been hit before, like a reflex that couldn't be trained away. The parents kept talking, thank you so much. He ran off without a word. But Eli was watching Jin. He wouldn't look at them. His gaze stayed nailed to the floor. When the man stepped closer, Jin's hands curled slowly into fists. Eli stepped forward. Hey, mind if I get a goodbye hug? Jin hesitated, then nodded. As Eli leaned in close, he caught a glimpse beneath the edge of the boy's hoodie. Bruises. His stomach dropped. He met Jin's eyes. The boy's lips trembled. Eli turned to the detectives. His voice was steady and clear. This kid isn't safe. You need to check them out, now. The father's smile vanished. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything, asterisk, Eli said, stepping between Jin and the man. But I saw the way he flinched. You don't get bruises like that from running away. The detectives exchanged a glance. One of them gently led the parents aside. Jin gripped the sleeve of Eli's jacket. Hours of paperwork followed, hushed conversations between adults. The parents' concern kept slipping into defensiveness. The father's voice rose at least twice before a detective firmly redirected him. Jin wasn't going home that night. Eventually, a young officer named Officer Lear approached Eli in the lobby. "Mr. Eli, Jin is going to be placed under temporary protection while we open an investigation, but he's refusing to go with social services." "Is he all right?" "He asked for you," she said gently, "said you were the only one who listened." Eli blinked. "I'm not family." "No," she said, "but you're safe, and right now that's what matters." She held out a form. "You're not obligated to sign this, but it would mean a great deal to him." Eli read the form. He read it again. Then, without hesitation, he picked up the pen and signed. "Guardian." He sat with the word for a long time after the officer left. He wasn't even sure what groceries he had, let alone how to raise a kid. But Jin had asked for him, not for safety, not even for help. Just him. Back at the apartment that night, Jin didn't say much, but for the first time he didn't sleep with his shoes on. Eli handed him a steaming bowl of noodles. "You don't have to talk," Eli said, "but you're safe here." Jin looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" Eli stared into his tea. "Because someone once helped me when I had nowhere to go. I remember what it meant." Jin was quiet for a long time. But later, much later, when the lights were off and the apartment was still, a voice came from across the room, small, barely above a whisper. "Thank you." Not long after, the system panel appeared. "Task completed. Level has now increased to level 2. Eli clicked the information button immediately, excitement already building in his chest. Then he read it. "New system feature, plus 100 yuan baseline reward for all future tasks, plus 1,000 yuan penalty for each failed task." Eli blinked. He blinked again. That's it. A kid's life saved, a family exposed, an investigation opened, and the grand upgrade was 100 yuan. He slammed the panel shut. "Stupid thing," he muttered, rolling over on the worn-out couch. Jin's steady breathing filled the room. Eli lay still in the dark. Maybe that was the real reward, he thought. And somewhere between that thought and sleep, he almost believed it. A few days passed in the rhythm of early mornings, store visits and delivery runs at night. Then one morning, Eli stirred awake, made his instant coffee, sat down and checked his bank account. 54,000 yuan. He stared at the number. "No way," he muttered. He blinked several times, half convinced it would change or disappear. It didn't. He'd never seen that much money in his life, not even close. Still stunned, he pulled up a website on his phone. MarketEdge Dragon, most valuable publicly traded companies in Dragon City. He scrolled slowly through the top of the list. Number 1, Aurora Dynamics, valuation nearly 3 trillion yuan, defense tech, AI surveillance drones, deep military contracts. Number 2, Zenith Biocore, pharmaceutical and bioengineering, revolutionary cancer treatments, neural implants and rumors of underground clinical trials. Number 3, Helix Cloud Systems, running 60% of the city's public and private cloud storage, accused of selling user data but nothing ever sticks. Number 4, Sable Energy, half the city's power grid, rolling blackouts in poor districts while its board members lived comfortably in retired politician luxury. And number 5, Silkway Virtual, the company behind Silkspire, a fully immersive virtual life simulator used by over 100 million residents. Eli leaned back. Even with the system, there's no way I'll ever afford this. But something else bothered him, not the money, the structure, 5 powerful empires each hiding something, all shaping Dragon City quietly in their image. He tapped the sorting button and flipped the list, descending to ascending. The trillion yuan giants vanished. In their place, small shops, local businesses, companies barely holding on. Total listings, 3,807. At the very bottom, 56,000 yuan. A delivery company, 3 employees, 1 scooter stolen, 1 in repairs, 2.1 stars on reviews. He kept scrolling. A tailoring boutique, a family-run mini-mart, a street food stall temporarily closed for permit issues, a gaming cafe dying under the pressure of home VR, a dry cleaner. And then, near the end of the list, the corner pocket, mixed retail, snacks, hardware, mail service, odd goods, located on a high-foot traffic corner in Lunaris Square, run by a single overworked owner, popular with students and night workers. Revenue potential, high if restocked and modernized. A customer comment read, "This place has everything: batteries, ramen, glue, sketchy USB fans, hope it doesn't close." Eli read it twice. Then he pressed the contact owner asterisk button. Hash part 12, Mr. Duan and the corner pocket. The phone rang 3 times, then a gruff, tired voice. "Yeah, who's this?" "Hi, sorry to bother you, my name's Eli. I saw your store listed online, the corner pocket. I'm considering investing, and I wanted to know more about what the business actually needs." A pause, then a dry, humorless chuckle. "You're the first person who's called about that in 6 months, you serious?" "I wouldn't be calling if I wasn't." The owner exhaled, long and weary. "It's real, all right, too real. Leaky ceiling, outdated wiring, half the fridges don't work. The bakery counter's been empty since the pandemic. I've been running it alone since my wife passed last year." "But here's the thing," the man continued, his voice shifting slightly. "It still has regulars. Old Miss Han comes in for her ginger candies every Sunday. Students from the tech college stop by for late-night ramen. Delivery guys shelter here during rainstorms. It's not just a store, it's part of the neighborhood. People want it to survive." "What would it take to turn things around?" "Cash flow first, a real inventory restock, fix the fridges so I can sell cold drinks, get the card reader working, and people workers." Eli glanced across the apartment, Jin still asleep on the couch curled under a blanket, morning light slipping through the curtains. "Would you be willing to meet in person?" A pause. "Yeah, I'll be at the store tomorrow morning at 9. Come by, just don't expect miracles." "I'll bring coffee," Eli said. The next morning, Eli put on his best, a slightly wrinkled red polo shirt, faded black jeans, and his fake Henry sneakers. He checked his balance, 49,000 yuan, not enough for anything fancy, but maybe exactly enough for this. Jin blinked at him from the kitchen. "You look like you're going to a job interview." "Sort of," Eli replied with a grin. "Don't get scammed," Jin mumbled into his glass of water. The ride to the Brigand district took 40 minutes. The streets grew busier and livelier as Eli moved toward the commercial center. Brigand wasn't upscale, but it wasn't rundown either. It had the energy of a neighborhood clinging to its identity, even as bigger chain stores slowly crept in around the edges. The corner pocket was wedged between a bakery and an electronics repair shop. The sign above the entrance was faded and peeling, but still legible. A hand-painted cartoon of a smiling rice bag clung to the window, one eye almost completely faded away. Inside, the smell of old wood, spices, cleaning supplies. Narrow aisles crammed with a beautiful chaos of goods: canned food, cheap shampoo, knockoff toys, phone chargers, discount snacks. A few regulars moved slowly down the aisles, mostly elderly people browsing or chatting quietly. Behind the counter, a man in his early 50s looked up, wrinkled, silver-haired, with eyes that hadn't seen a full night's sleep in weeks. "You must be Eli," he said. "That obvious." "Young guy, nervous energy, not from around here. Yeah, you stand out." They sat at a small table near the back of the shop, behind a rack of umbrellas, on scarred wood that had a stubborn T-ring refusing to be cleaned away. A little electric fan blew warm air. Mr. Duan poured lukewarm green tea from a plastic bottle. "So," Mr. Duan said finally, "you saw the numbers." "I did." Eli nodded. "The business is barely floating, behind on rent, but I also saw something else: regular customers, low overhead, good location, a shop that could be more." Mr. Duan cracked a slow smile. "You're the first person who said that without trying to sell me a rebranding package, any retail experience." "No," Eli admitted, "but I've worked in kitchens, done deliveries, ran side hustles. I've been broke enough to understand what people really need. And this place feels like one of those rare stores a community actually wants to survive. You just need a hand." Mr. Duan looked away, his fingers tapped slowly on the table. "This was opened by me and my wife. When she passed, I ran it alone. I thought I could keep it going until I figured something out." He glanced around. "That was 6 years ago." Eli held his tea with both hands. "What do you need most right now?" "Cash flow. I need to restock before the summer school season. Drinks, snacks, supplies, those sell. But the new supermarkets on the other side of town, they buy in bulk and kill me on pricing. I don't need millions. I need maybe 30 to 50,000 yuan just to catch up. And after that, tech, I've got no online orders, no delivery option, not even a working card reader most days. My niece tried to set up a website once. It crashed whenever more than 15 people visited at the same time. Eli chuckled despite himself. I can help with that, maybe not the website but the rest. Mr. Juan studied him more carefully, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. You're serious about this? It's not a school project. I'm serious, I don't have much, but I want to build something, and I think the corner pocket is worth saving. Mr. Juan nodded slowly. What can you offer? 30% for 45,000 yuan. Mr. Juan laughed, deep and real. Fair enough. They shook hands. Not a multi-million yuan deal, not the beginning of an empire. Just the beginning. Hash part 14, the neighborhood. After the papers were signed, Mr. Juan gave Eli a full tour of the store. The lights flickered, one shelf in the canned goods section was held up by a stack of old newspapers, the freezer groaned like a dying animal, the checkout counter had a chipped surface and a cash register that beeped at odd intervals, no scanners, no automation, every price entered by hand. The back room was dim, stuffy, and stacked with boxes in no particular order. A cracked whiteboard showed notes from months ago. A suggestion box near the staff fridge contained exactly one card. Get a new coffee machine, this one tastes terrible. So not exactly high-end shopping, Eli observed. Nope, Mr. Juan said with a smirk, but it's still here. He patted the nearest shelf like an old friend. Now let me show you the neighborhood. They stepped outside into Brigand's busy streets, where old hand-painted signs competed with new neon, and every alley had a story. First stop, Auntie Lynn's food stall, sweet tofu pudding and dumplings, steam rising in clouds. Mr. Juan leaned in quietly. She's been on her own for 10 years, lost her son in a car accident. She feeds half the street with what she makes. Auntie Lynn squinted at Eli. You look too skinny, eat more. She handed him a hot cup of soy milk without waiting for him to ask. Next, Mr. Bao, a retired opera singer with thick glasses and a bad back. He ran a second-hand bookstore beside a pet grooming shop. He forgets book titles, Mr. Juan whispered, but remembers every face. He sings to stray cats when business is slow. Mr. Bao bowed and grinned. So you're the boy who wants to help save the corner pocket? Good, maybe now Juan will finally fix that ceiling leak. Then they met Sally and Momo, a young couple running a small daycare out of their apartment. Momo bounced a baby on one hip while she talked. We charge by what people can pay, she said. Some bring food, some do repairs, some just bring us the latest gossip. Mr. Juan's mood shifted as they passed a gleaming storefront being renovated nearby. A new sign was going up, Supermartex. The windows were plastered with ads for sign-up bonuses, delivery drones, and bulk discounts. It felt like a different planet. They're no good, Mr. Juan said quietly. They cut prices, replace service with efficiency, and one by one, shops like ours disappear. He looked back toward the corner pocket. But we fight back with real people, that's where you come in. Back at the shop, a community bulletin board near the entrance was thick with flyers. Free tutoring sessions, a laundry helper wanted, a missing cat named Baozi, a sign-up sheet for neighborhood cleanup day, and an enthusiastic, if misspelled, ad for Brigand's Got Talent, hosted by crazy Uncle Meng, the local handyman and self-described failed magician. Eli stood in the middle of it all and looked around. He saw rust and warmth together, tired faces and stubborn smiles, a community that wasn't flashy but was fiercely, quietly alive. For the first time, he didn't just see a convenience store. He saw something worth standing up for. Eli came back the next morning with Jin. Sorry for waking you up so early, he said. Do you want to come help at the store? Yeah, why not? Jin replied, voice thick with sleep. When they arrived, a small crew of local contractors was already on site, tough, quiet men with tools and purpose. Mr. Juan introduced them cheerfully. They were there for the plumbing, the wiring, and the lights that had been scaring customers away for months. First up, plumbing, Mr. Juan announced, checklist in hand. Then wiring, then we deal with those lights. And the leaky ceiling, Eli added, before Auntie Lynn starts bringing an umbrella inside. By noon, the place buzzed with the sounds of drills and pipe scraping and the occasional sharp curse. Sparks flew as old wiring gave way to new. The store looked like a construction zone, but for the first time in years, it felt alive. Eli took Jin into the dim back storeroom. "We're not touching the plumbing back here," he said, "but we are making this space work. Your job, sort the inventory, organize it, label everything. I don't want to dig through instant noodles just to find the dumplings." Jin looked around at the stacked chaos, raised an eyebrow. "This is what we're working on." "This is your mission," Eli said, handing him a clipboard. Jin rolled his eyes, but he took the clipboard. "So you want me to do all that?" "Yep. Time to take charge, don't make me regret this." Jin didn't say anything, but as Eli turned to leave, a quiet voice followed him out. "Got it, General." By mid-afternoon, the aisle 3 lights had been replaced, the broken shelf had been dragged to the dumpster, a stronger one already found and installed, and in the storeroom Jin had sorted half the inventory into neat labeled crates. The labels had drawings on them, dumplings wearing sunglasses, rice bags doing kung fu. Eli saw them and tried very hard not to grin. When Jin took a break, covered in dust but clearly proud, Eli handed him a cold drink. "You did great." Jin looked away. "It's no big deal." "It is to me." They sat together on the back step. Mr. Duan brought tea and joined them. The electricians worked in the background. "The store looks a lot better," Mr. Duan said. "So do you guys." Jin rolled his eyes. "I'm 15. "Exactly," Mr. Duan said with a wink. "The store looked like it was 80. As the sun began to go down, casting long shadows across the alley, Eli stretched and stood. "Time to head back." "Yeah," Jin said, getting up too. He paused, glancing back at the storeroom door. "But I might come back tomorrow. I have to finish the other half right." Eli looked at him, something like surprise in his face, then a slow smirk. "Look at who's volunteering already." "Don't make it weird," Jin replied, a hint of something playful hidden in it. Back at the apartment that evening, Eli checked his balance, pulled on his delivery uniform and opened the app. A few orders were already waiting. Late-night deliveries, noodles, cigarettes, cheap beer, the usual. Then, around 10 o'clock, an order came in. 1 pack of cigarettes, 2 tall cans of Golden Dragon beer. Address: an upscale apartment complex in the Northern District. The Heights, the kind of building where the elevators played jazz and the mailboxes had gold trim. Delivery notes: "Please be discreet, don't ring the doorbell," text when outside. Eli rolled his eyes. "Here we go." He parked quietly, followed the instructions, and texted from outside room 302A. A few moments later, the door opened just a crack. A balding middle-aged man in a silk bathrobe peeked out, eyes darting up and down the hallway like a spy. "You Eli?" "That's what it says on my jacket." "Good, good." He reached out to snatch the bag from Eli's hand. "Perfect, you're a lifesaver." But before Eli could turn away, a second voice rang out from inside the apartment. "Honey, who was at the door?" The man flinched like he'd been electrocuted. "Just wrong delivery." Footsteps. The door swung open wider. A woman in pajamas stood there, arms folded. She looked from her husband to Eli to the bag now dangling awkwardly behind the man's back. "You ordered cigarettes and beer." Her voice was cold and precise. "No, I was just helping. This guy dropped it and I was." Eli gave a small, apologetic nod. "It's all paid for, contactless like requested." The woman's gaze slid to Eli, then back to her husband. "So you were being discreet, huh?" The man deflated like a punctured balloon. "I just wanted to relax a little." She lifted the bag from his hand, turned, and walked back into the apartment. "Enjoy the couch," she called over her shoulder. The man looked at Eli with the tired sigh of someone who had lost a war before he'd even found his armor. Eli gave him a thumbs up and headed back to the elevator. "Should have just ordered soda, man." The elevator descended, jazz played on the speakers. Eli hummed along, perfectly deadpan. When he reached his scooter, his phone buzzed. "New order: chicken with sauce, very extra. Customer note: last guy didn't bring enough napkins, I remember." Eli looked up at the sky. "Is this my villain origin story?" 3 days later, Eli woke up groggy. He went through the motions: cold water, shower, brush, clothes, flopped onto the edge of the bed, opened the system. Checked his balance. 54,000 yuan. He stared at it for a long time. No way. He woke Jin up. Time to go to the store. The morning was bright and breezy as they walked through Brigham. Stalls were opening, shop shutters clanged up. A pair of uncles argued passionately about fish prices at the corner. They turned the corner and Eli stopped. The corner pocket looked different, really, truly different. The windows were spotless. The lights inside were steady and clear, no flickering. It didn't look like the usual tired convenience store anymore. It looked like a place that meant business. Mr. Dewan was standing outside with the contractors, laughing and shaking hands like he'd just won a game show. He jogged over the moment he spotted them. "Morning, Eli, can you believe it? The store's done." "Already? I told you these guys were fast." Inside, everything had changed. Soft, steady light fell evenly across every aisle. No buzzing, no flickering. Clean, consistent light that made the whole interior look expensive. Mr. Dewan flipped a switch with obvious delight. The lights shifted. Warm yellow, cool white, soft pink. "Mood lighting for snacks." Jin raised an eyebrow. "You're gonna sell instant noodles like it's a fancy restaurant now. Gotta improve the customer experience." The new wiring was neatly tucked away. The freezer ran quietly. Then Mr. Dewan led them to the back and opened the bathroom door with a dramatic flourish. The toilet flushed perfectly, no gurgling, no drama. The sink worked, the tiles were clean. Eli clapped slowly. "Okay, that toilet used to be a war zone." "We've come a long way," Mr. Dewan laughed. Regulars were trickling in. Auntie Lynn walked through the door with her shopping bag and squinted up at the ceiling. "About time," she said. "Now I can see what I'm buying." Customers lingered, they chatted. They looked around instead of rushing through. The whole vibe of the store had shifted from something surviving to something thriving. Mr. Dewan turned to Jin. "So have you decided, are you in?" Jin looked at the floor for a moment. Then he nodded. "Yeah, I'm in." Eli turned to stare at him. "Wait, really?" Mr. Dewan blinked, then collected himself. "All right then, 16 hours a week, 12 yuan an hour, you'll be on the register, stocking shelves, keeping the aunties from fighting over the last watermelon." Jin grinned. "Sounds fair, when do I start?" "Monday," Mr. Dewan said. "Gotta let you enjoy your last weekend of freedom." "Cool." Eli stood in the middle of the store, in the soft, steady light that hadn't been there a week ago, and watched a teenage boy he'd found sleeping on a street corner agree to his first real job. He didn't say anything. He just smiled. That evening, Eli and Jin took the bus to the other side of the city. The sky faded into shades of purple and blue. "Where are we going?" Jin asked after a while. "I want you to meet someone." Room 207 was near the end of the corridor. Eli opened the door quietly. The room was dimmer than the rest of the hospital. Machines beeped steadily. His mother lay still under crisp white linen, peaceful but unmoving. "She's in a coma," Eli said. "She has been for a while now." Jin followed him in. The air was heavy. Eli pulled a chair to the bedside and took his mother's hand like always. He squeezed it gently. "Hey, Ma, still not waking up, typical." He looked back at Jin. "Come here." Jin hesitated, then walked over to the foot of the bed. "This is Jin," Eli said, eyes on his mother's face. "He's staying with me, helping out at the store. He's figuring things out." Jin swallowed. "Hi," he said quietly. You raised a great person." Eli blinked. He didn't say anything. He just smiled, faint and real. They stood in the silence of the beeping machines and the hum of the lights. After a few minutes, Jin stepped closer. He gently adjusted the blanket near her shoulder. "It's strange," he said. "Even though she's not awake, it feels like she knows." "She always knew more than she let on," Eli said, "even when she was mad at me." Jin sat down on the edge of the second chair. "Do you think she'll wake up?" Eli didn't answer right away. He kept holding her hand. "I don't know," he said finally. "But I'm not giving up." Jin nodded slowly. They didn't speak on the way home. Maybe life wasn't perfect, but he was still alive. And he was still building something. And sometimes that was enough. New ground. Estimated runtime, 48-56 minutes. Narrator's note: this script is formatted for single-voice narration. Dialogue lines are bolded for vocal distinction. Pause cues indicate natural breathing moments. Scene headers are for the narrator's orientation. Do not read them aloud unless desired. The weekend had been quiet but busy. While Brigand started to feel the early hints of summer, families hauling out folding chairs, kids chasing each other with melting popsicles, the corner pocket was going through its own small transformation. Jin had spent most of Saturday and Sunday training. Mr. Dewan taught him the basics with an odd combination of dad jokes and efficiency, while Eli quietly stepped in to correct or clarify things whenever Mr. Dewan drifted off into long speeches about the glory days of retail. Jin picked it up faster than anyone expected. He stocked shelves without denting the cans, he stacked ramen cups without bringing them crashing down on himself, and he'd already started memorizing customer quirks. Auntie Lin wanted her eggs in paper bags, not plastic, because as she explained very seriously, plastic makes the yolks sad. Mr. Zhao tried to haggle over already discounted rice, as though bargaining was his birthright and the universe owed him 2 yuan off every bag. And Mrs. Senny, the one in the purple sun hat, inspected expiry dates on every product like she was appraising diamonds. Eli, meanwhile, juggled his usual duties, inventory checks, shift prep, quietly making sure Jin didn't get overwhelmed. The store felt different, livelier, even with the future still hanging by a thread made of duct tape and stubborn optimism. There was progress, real progress, and that counted for something. Monday. Eli rolled out of bed, rubbed his face, and stumbled through the usual routine: brush, wash, dress, coffee, existential sigh. He sat down, opened the system, and signed in. Account balance 84,000 yuan. He stared at it. It hurt. He blinked, he refreshed the page. The number stayed exactly where it was. A grin tugged at the corner of his mouth. It was the most money he'd ever had in his life. It felt unreal, like it belonged to someone else, someone more sorted, someone who had their life figured out. Just then, Jin shuffled out of the bedroom, already dressed in the black polo Mr. Dewan insisted counted as a uniform. His hair stuck up in places, but his eyes were bright. First shift, Jin said, grinning. You ready? You mean are you ready? Eli replied. You remember how to work the scanner? Jin shrugged. Red light goes beep. How hard can it be? They arrived at the corner pocket just after 8 in the morning. The shutters were halfway up, and Mr. Dewan was already inside, arranging a display of instant noodles with the focused intensity of someone preparing for a national competition. Morning, boys, he called. Expecting foot traffic today. Let's keep things sharp and moving. Jin walked behind the counter and started checking the drawer, just like he'd seen Eli do. He still fumbled a bit with the coins, but he was clearly trying. Then the air in the room changed. Before a single customer had even walked through the door, a black Range Rover SV rolled up slowly outside. Sleek, brand new, the kind of vehicle that looked like it had no business in a district like Brigham. The door opened. Out stepped a man in a crisp navy suit, designer shoes from Hanry and hair slicked back with surgical precision. His eyes were sharp and calculating, and his smile had never once met those eyes. Mr. Feng, manager of the incoming Supermartex branch. He walked in like he owned the floor beneath him, his gaze sweeping the shelves with a faint sneer before coming to rest on the counter. Mr. Dewan's hands went still on the noodle cups. Eli stepped out from the back room just in time to feel the shift in the room's energy. Morning, Mr. Feng said smoothly. Thought I'd drop by. Why? Mr. Dewan asked flat. Mr. Feng smiled, the kind of smile that never travels above the cheekbones. Just being neighborly, you know, as fellow members of the retail community. No offense, Eli said, stepping up beside Mr. Dewan, but you don't strike me as the neighborly type. Mr. Feng chuckled. Charming, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Our renovations are nearly done. Once we open, things around here are going to change. We're not going anywhere, Mr. Dewan said. I'm not saying you should, Feng replied with a casual shrug. I just hope you're prepared. Full automation, deep discounts, bulk imports. I'm afraid sentimentality doesn't sell. From the corner, Jin and Mayan watched in silence. Neither moved. Mayan raised an eyebrow. Jin's jaw tightened. We're more than a store, Eli said. People come here because they're seen, heard, respected. Mr. Feng turned to him with a patronizing tilt of his head. That's cute, but warm smiles don't compete with 30% off laundry detergent. Maybe not, Mr. Dewan said quietly, but a warm smile doesn't expire. Something flickered in Mr. Feng's expression just for a second, a small flinch barely visible. Then he smoothed it away and adjusted his cufflinks. Well, he said, I suppose we'll see who lasts. He turned and left. The door chimed, the black Range Rover rolled away. Silence returned. Mayan was the first to speak. "Wow, that guy's got villain energy." "Right," Jin muttered, "like the final boss of an anime." Mr. Duan chuckled dryly. "Let him come, he'll never understand what this store means." Eli just exhaled and shook his head. "We've got work to do." Later that afternoon, Jin and Mayan were rearranging a messy snack shelf. Sour plums, seaweed crisps, the eternal challenge of making sad packaging look remotely appetizing. Jin held up a bag of dried cuttlefish and regarded it with deep suspicion. "Okay, but explain this to me. Who actually wants to chew fish-flavored rubber for fun?" Mayan snorted. "Old people and my uncle, he says it builds jaw strength." Jin gave the bag a look of personal betrayal and tossed it onto the shelf. "I'd rather chew glass." They both laughed. Then Mayan, still smiling, said, "You'd actually be pretty good in my biology class. There's a whole chapter on weird animal stuff." Jin blinked. "Huh, why would I be in your class?" "I dunno," she said, shrugging. "You're observant, detail-oriented. You remembered Auntie Lynn's paper bag egg rule after hearing it exactly once." "That's not biology." "No," Mayan grinned, "but it's student energy. You ever think about going back to school?" Jin paused mid-stack. "Not really," he said, quieter now. "Why?" Mayan leaned her arms on the shelf. "Just wondering, some kids I know would kill to have half your calm under pressure." He gave a small shrug, trying to play it off. "Never really had a reason." "Well," she said, bumping his shoulder lightly, "maybe now you do." Jin didn't respond right away, but later, as they scanned items for a regular customer, the thought crept back. "Maybe," he mumbled under his breath, so quietly it was barely meant to be heard. He looked down, lost in thought. Then Auntie Lynn arrived to complain, very seriously, that the salt looked smaller than it did yesterday, and the moment passed. The next morning, soft light spilled into the room in warm slants. Eli stirred to the gentle sounds of the city waking up outside, the soft clinking of delivery bikes, someone sweeping a pavement, a dog barking somewhere in the distance. He went through his routine: cold water, brushed teeth, hoodie and jeans. Then he sat on the edge of the bed and signed in. Account balance 94,000 yuan. He still wasn't used to seeing numbers that size attached to his name. Jin came out of the other room, still pulling on his hoodie, hair a mess as usual. "You ready?" Eli asked. Jin nodded, then hesitated as they stepped out onto the street. After a moment, he glanced sideways. "Hey, Eli, what was school like for you?" Eli blinked. "School, messy, didn't finish, actually." "Really?" Jin said, looking thoughtful. "Mayan was talking about science class yesterday, something about explosions, sounded kinda fun." Eli chuckled. "Depends on your definition of fun, but yeah, I guess there were good parts." He glanced over. "You thinking about going to school?" Jin didn't answer. He didn't look at Eli either. "Well, if you are," Eli said quietly, "just tell me, I'll get it sorted." Neither of them said anything after that. But the silence wasn't awkward, it was the thinking kind. At the corner pocket, the windows gleamed in the morning sun. When they stepped inside, the new lights and clean floors greeted them with a soft hum. The faint smell of sawdust and fresh paint still hung in the air, the scent of a place becoming something new. Mr. Duan was at the counter sorting receipts. He waved without looking up. "You're late." "It's literally 7:30, Eli replied. "Exactly," Mr. Duan grinned. They fell into their morning routine. Jin stocked shelves. Eli checked the freezer. Auntie Lynn was already voicing her frustration over the lack of fresh tofu. Mr. Zhao was warming up his haggling. Eli was halfway through checking soy milk expiry dates when his vision flickered. "New system task available." The notification blinked in soft blue light, low, private, invisible to everyone else in the room. Task: check on the woman in Tenstone District. Time limit 24 hours. Reward 4,000 yuan. Penalty for failure -20% of your net worth. He read the description carefully. An elderly woman alone on the third floor of a crumbling apartment block on Halin Street, not seen in several days. Neighbors reported odd noises, a smell, no response at the door. The landlord absent. The building, weak plumbing, unreliable electricity, loose stair rails. Tenstone District, a former mining area, now filled with cheap housing blocks and small repair shops. Not the worst part of Dragon City, but not somewhere you'd go for a casual stroll. Eli stared at the screen for a moment, then he looked up. Jin, he said, tone shifting. I've got to go, someone in Tenstone needs help. Jin raised an eyebrow, serious. Who? An old friend, I think she's in trouble. Mr. Duan overheard from the storeroom doorway and appeared with a concerned look. Tenstone, careful out there, crime rate's genuinely high, better chance of getting robbed than winning the lottery. Eli nodded, grabbed his jacket and headed out. Tenstone looked exactly like it sounded. Cracked sidewalks, shattered windows, garbage in the middle of the street. A stray cat sat on a broken air conditioning unit, staring at Eli like it owned the block. A man in a hoodie passed without eye contact, mumbling to himself. Block 14B leaned slightly like it had a bad knee, paint peeled off in long strips. The elevator was dead. Eli climbed 3 flights of stairs that creaked like they might scream under too much weight. Apartment 37. He knocked, no answer. Knocked again, louder, still nothing. After a third knock, he crouched and listened at the door. Silence. He hesitated, then he did something he'd learned from his delivery days, wedging an old loyalty card between the frame and the lock. A firm shoulder nudge and the door eased open. The air inside was heavy, not foul, just stale, the kind of stillness that settles when nobody has moved through a space in too long. The apartment was dim, blinds drawn tight. On the counter, a dozen prescription bottles, a bowl of instant noodles untouched for days crusted over. Hello, Eli called, stepping carefully. Ma'am, I'm here to check on you. A faint noise came from the back bedroom. He followed it, pulse rising. He found her on the floor. She was maybe in her 60s, pale, weak. Her lips were dry and her hands trembled, low blood sugar, dehydration, or both. Her eyes barely registered him, but her hand was pointing toward the desk. Eli looked over and saw a bottle of glucose tablets. He moved immediately. It's okay, he said gently, kneeling beside her. You're gonna be all right. His hands trembled slightly as he called emergency services. The dispatcher assured him help was coming. While he waited, he propped her upright and placed a glucose tablet carefully between her lips. He watched her chew slowly, color beginning the long climb back into her face. Minutes later, emergency responders arrived. She was loaded onto a stretcher. One of the paramedics paused at the door and looked back at Eli. She wouldn't have lasted another night. The sun was higher when Eli walked back into the store. Jin was behind the counter squinting at the till. Mayan was restocking the instant noodle shelf with practiced ease. Back, Eli said. His voice was a little rough around the edges. Jin turned. You good? Yeah, I'm all right. The system pinged quietly in his mind. Task complete, reward 4,000 yuan, balance 98,000 yuan. Mr. Duan waved from the snack aisle. Hey, if you're done visiting your friend, we're running low on dish soap. Eli rolled his eyes, but he smiled. Later, back behind the counter, Jin leaned on his elbows. So, what was school like? Eli thought for a second. Loud, boring, sometimes kinda great. Jin smirked. Mayan said it's where people get to be normal. Eli shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe it's where people figure out what normal even means. Jin didn't respond, but Eli noticed that look on his face again, distant and quiet and thoughtful, like something was being turned over behind the eyes, the look of someone edging toward a decision. Eli just smiled, recognizing what it might mean. Eli and Jin arrived home just before 8 that evening. The air outside carried the smell of fried noodles and motor oil, Dragon City's strange, familiar perfume. The ride home had been quiet, Jin leaning into the wind on the back of the scooter, lost in thought. Inside, Jin went straight for the fridge, hunting for leftover dumplings. Eli sank onto the couch, pulled out his phone and typed 3 words into the search bar. Top schools in Dragon City. A list loaded. He scrolled slowly. Number 1, Polaris Academy, cutting-edge, technology-focused, campus overlooking the ocean, smart classrooms, AI-powered learning hubs, uniforms designed by famous fashion houses. Most students came from the city's most powerful families. Tuition 1,200,000 yuan per year. Definitely out of our league, Eli muttered. Number 2, Xuangxi Public High, one of the oldest in the city. Gothic architecture, produced politicians, judges and media figures for generations. Tuition 900,000 yuan per year. Expensive, sounds like a place full of snobby people. He kept scrolling. Number 3, Halin Tech School in Tenstone District, vocational, mechanics, electronics, industrial trades, affordable and hands-on but underfunded, passionate teachers working against the odds. Tuition 75,000 yuan. If he wanted something practical. Number 4, Red Pine High, strong in some areas, a drama club that pulled no punches, a music program that had quietly produced some of the city's most interesting underground artists, but overcrowded classrooms, uneven resources, and corruption hiding somewhere in the administration. Tuition 56,000 yuan. Number 5, Grathite Private High, balanced, not the most prestigious or high-tech but dedicated teachers and strong community ties, solid extracurriculars, stable, and notably where Mayan went, the school that apparently explodes things in science class for fun. Tuition 175,000 yuan. Number 6, Junran Military School, structure, discipline, physical training alongside academics, a place that shaped students for pressure and leadership. Tuition 60,000 yuan. Number 7, St. Caelin's High, religious private school, ivy-covered walls, academic excellence, moral strictness, scholarships available but rare. Number 8, Jujiang Magnet School for the Arts, painters, writers, musicians, acceptance by portfolio or audition, walls covered in murals, uniforms optional. Number 9, Black Hollow Technical Institute, engineering, software, cybersecurity, industry connections, faculty from the tech world, a launchpad for students who wanted to build things. Number 10, Henslin Charter School, non-profit, short-staffed, a tough environment, but for some kids it was the only option available. Tuition free, run entirely by charity. Eli sat back and stared at the list for a long time, weighing each one. Some were out of reach, some were too rigid, a few, just maybe, could be something real. He bookmarked 3, Shuangshi Public High, Jujiang Magnet School and Black Hollow Technical Institute. Each had its risks, each had its rewards. Just then, Jin came into the living room, munching on a cold dumpling. "What tray you looking at?" Eli turned the screen toward him. "Options." Jin leaned in, his eyes moved slowly down the list. They paused on one name, then he said quietly, "I wanna go to the one Mayan goes to." Eli raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. "Grathite, huh, all right, let's see what we can do." He set the phone down and let Jin's words settle in the room. "The one Mayan goes to." There was a quiet certainty in his voice, not excitement, Jin wasn't that kind of kid, but something steadier, like he'd finally found a direction that didn't feel like running away. "Grathite it is," Eli said. He didn't say it out loud, but they both understood what that meant. Their current apartment was in Henxai, affordable, rundown, far from Briggan. The daily commute would be rough, especially with Jin trying to rebuild a school routine from scratch. Eli could already picture the sleepy mornings, the late bus transfers, the cold winter rides. No, if this was going to work, they had to move closer. He picked up the phone again. Search 2-bedroom apartment, Briggan district for rent. The results loaded, each one tried a little too hard to hide its cracks. Winksy Flats in South Briggan, a 5-story walk-up between a florist and a shuttered bookstore. No elevator, no flash, 10,800 yuan a month could feel like home. The Copperwalk Residences in East Briggan, automated blinds, voice-controlled lighting, imported countertops, 27,000 yuan a month, yeah, not happening. Lantern Row Complex in North Briggan, brick-faced, a weedy courtyard, a broken fountain someone still tried to fill with koi every spring, 12,400 yuan a month, maybe if the price could be nudged down. Blue Fern Apartments in Central Briggan, peeling turquoise paint, iron gate that stuck, 10 minutes from the school on foot, a night noodle vendor outside who knew everyone by name, 11,000 yuan a month. Cheap, close and maybe safe, probably smells like fried onion noodles year-round. And Bridgecrest Tower in West Briggan, a gated high-rise with a marble lobby and security guards in sharp uniforms, 25,000 a month, beautiful, soulless. Eli bookmarked 3, Blue Fern, Winksy Flats and Bridgecrest Tower. He glanced toward Jin's room, where the sound of low, off-key humming drifted through the cracked door. "Let's find you somewhere to grow," he murmured to himself. From the kitchen, Jin's voice floated out. "Hey Eli, we're out of soy sauce." Eli stood with a groan. "One thing at a time." Eli's alarm buzzed at 6:30. He sat up, cracked his back, shuffled to the sink and checked his phone. Balance 104,000 yuan. Better than he feared, worse than he hoped. Between the store investment, his mother's hospital bills, Jin's school registration, and a potential move, he was walking a tightrope, but he was walking. From the other room, Jin emerged in a t-shirt 3 sizes too big and socks that didn't match. "We have eggs." "Nope," Eli said, "but we have dreams and ambition." Jin stared at him, lame. Eli made the calls early. The landlords were surprisingly responsive. Viewing slots lined up, Wenxie Flats at 10, Blue Fern at noon, Bridgecrest Tower mid-afternoon. Then he called Mr. Duan to let him know they'd be out for the day. "About time," Mr. Duan said warmly. "Take the full day, don't rush the decision." Eli smiled. "Thanks, I'll keep you posted." He hung up and looked at Jin, who was finishing breakfast and quietly humming to himself. Today wasn't just about finding a place to live, it was about finding a place to start over. Wenxie Flats, 10 o'clock. The air in the entryway smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Mrs. Elmer greeted them in a flower print blouse and leather sandals, holding a tray of still-warm almond cookies. "Second floor," she said cheerfully. "No elevator, but it builds character." The staircase walls were painted a warm sunset yellow and hung with watercolor landscapes, old calligraphy pieces, and a photograph of the building from what looked like 40 years ago. The stairs groaned underfoot, but in a comfortable way, a lived-in way. She unlocked the door to the unit and stepped aside. The apartment opened into a modest living room bathed in soft afternoon light. Lace curtains swayed in a gentle breeze that carried the scent of roses drifting up from the florist downstairs. The wooden floors gleamed under the sun, a little scuffed but warm. The kitchen looked like it belonged in a storybook. Ceramic tile counters, a vintage gas stove, shelves lined with tiny labeled jars of herbs and spices. "It's not new," Mrs. Elmer said, "but it's honest. The oven bakes evenly and the tap water runs clean." The smaller bedroom overlooked the back alley and had a surprisingly large closet. "Perfect for a student," she said, nodding at Jin. The main bedroom had just enough space for a bed and a dresser, with a little balcony that looked out onto the florist's rooftop garden. A cat stretched lazily in the sun across the way. Mrs. Elmer stepped back to give them privacy. She handed them each a cookie as she went. Almond warmed soft in the center. Eli stood in the living room and looked around. The space wasn't fancy, but it felt kind. It felt like it was watching out for you. "What do you think?" he asked Jin. "Could you live here?" Jin looked around, then he nodded. "I think it's real." Blue Fern Apartments, 2 o'clock. The turquoise paint was chipped, and the metal gate clanged shut behind them, but inside something else was happening. Mr. Wang met them in the hallway, keys jangling on his belt like lazy percussion. He wore a short-sleeved collared shirt tucked into belted slacks and led them up the stairs with a grin. The stairwell walls had tiny paper cranes taped next to doorbells. Near the third-floor landing, someone had written a quote in chalk: "A home is not walls, it's warmth." "That one's from Pat," Mr. Wang said. "Lives down the hall, bit of a poet, bit of a gossip." He unlocked the door. The living room was larger than Eli expected. Wide windows let in generous sunlight that glinted off the polished wooden floor, a pale green ceiling, a few chips near the corners but recent patchwork showing someone still cared. The smaller bedroom, a clean window, a functional wall heater and a built-in desk. Jin opened a drawer and gave a faint nod. "It's small, but not bad." The main bedroom had a sliding door closet running nearly the full width of one wall, clean and bright. Mr. Wang tested the bathroom water pressure with a raw, stand-up shower, no tub, but that water pressure doesn't lie. "Neighbors?" Eli asked. "Mixed bag," Mr. Wang said. Mr. Lau across the hall, retired truck driver always offering pickled vegetables. Young couple next door with a toddler, quiet most of the time, and across the way, he lowered his voice, a cat named Mushroom who thinks she owns the floor. As if on cue, a meow drifted faintly down the hall. Jin pressed his nose to the living room window. "You can smell noodles from here." "That be Yao's," Mr. Wang said, grinning. "Sets up right out front after 5, dumplings too." Eli let out a slow breath. "It's not bad." "It's real," Jin said quietly. Mr. Wang handed Eli a business card with the quiet confidence of someone who had already made the sale. Bridgecrest Tower, mid-afternoon. The glass elevator rose in silence. The lobby below was perfect, trimmed hedges, decorative gravel, not a weed in sight. Joel from Silver Key Realty met them looking like he cost more than Eli's scooter. His smile was practiced and white and professional. Bridgecrest is one of the only premium properties in this part of the city, he said smoothly. Gated, 24-hour security, soundproof walls, regular maintenance. Most residents are professionals and executives. Unit 4B was sleek, modern, and coldly beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows, matte white walls, polished hardwood floors, lighting that adjusted automatically as they entered, a smart fridge that connected to your phone, tracked expiration dates, and had full internet access. Jin poked at the fridge interface, mildly impressed but saying nothing. The main bedroom had built-in storage and smart blackout curtains. The second bedroom was bright with a stunning view. It felt like a hotel. You'd be neighbors with Ms. Natalie, a venture capitalist, and Mr. Bobby from tech, Joel offered. Very respectful, very private, you might not see them much. They passed a door in the hallway. Behind it, muffled piano music, delicate, precise, controlled. That's Dr. Song, Joel said. Retired concert pianist, practices daily, zero noise complaints. He smiled warmly. What do you think? Eli stood by the window. The view was flawless. It's nice, he said. Beside him, just barely under his breath. It's cold, Jin muttered. Joel laughed politely, mishearing entirely. Oh, temperature can be adjusted from anywhere in the apartment or your phone. They rode the glass elevator back down in silence. As they stepped out onto the smooth pavement, Jin looked up at the gleaming tower one last time. Too clean, he said. Eli chuckled. Yeah, feels like if you dropped a sock on the floor, someone might file a report. The sky was darkening by the time they got back to their Hanksai apartment. The door creaked like always. The floor sagged near the kitchen. Eli stood in the middle of the small living room, looking at the faded couch, the stack of takeout menus, the glossy folder Joel had handed him at Bridgecrest. Jin dropped onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. So, he said after a moment, which one? Eli poured 2 glasses of water and handed one over before settling into the armchair. He thought about Wenxie Flats, warm, lived-in with Mrs. Elmer's almond cookies and that quiet kindness in every corner, small, yes, but safe, community. He thought about Blue Fern, close to school, close to the corner pocket, the smell of noodles drifting up from the street, old men playing checkers near the gate, Mr. Wang and his zip ties and good intentions. It had problems, but it had a pulse. He thought about Bridgecrest, immaculate, efficient, the kind of place that whispered you made it while somehow making you feel like you didn't belong. He looked at Jin, who now had one sock halfway off, and a dumpling sticker still stuck to his sleeve from lunch. We can afford any of them, Eli said, but that doesn't mean all of them are right. The glass one was kinda cool, Jin said, but didn't feel like us. I thought the same. Eli pulled out a notebook and wrote 3 names, tapped the pen, thought it through. Wenxie's quiet, comfortable, Blue Fern's close, chaotic, and has that noodle guy you liked. Bridgecrest is polished and professional but not warm. Jin tilted his head. We don't need perfect, just something that feels like starting over doesn't have to suck. Eli looked at him. Then I think we already know. Jin met his eyes and gave one small nod. Blue Fern. Blue Fern. Eli picked up his phone, found Mr. Wang's number and pressed call. It rang twice. Mr. Wang, it's Eli. Yeah, we saw the place today. We'd like to take the unit if it's still available. A pause. A grin spread slowly across Eli's face. Great, we'll come sign the paperwork tomorrow. He hung up, looked at Jin. Well, he said, grabbing a broom, let's start packing. Eli had chosen Blue Fern for many reasons, some practical, some emotional. But more than anything, he had chosen it because it reminded him of his mother. She'd spent the last few years locked inside her own quiet, first from illness, then from a coma that showed no signs of lifting. But Eli remembered the way she used to live, how she'd strike up conversations with shopkeepers, how she'd help the old woman across the street carry groceries even when she was already late, how she loved places that were a little worn, a little lived in, where stories echoed in the walls. She would have fit in at Blue Fern. She would have planted flowers on the windowsill and made friends with the noodle vendor. She would have brought homemade dumplings to the man who fed stray cats behind the trash bins. She would have smiled at the chaos and called it charming. Eli stood in the apartment's small living room, sunlight pushing through the cracked blinds. Maybe this place wasn't just a stepping stone. Maybe if his mother ever came back to them, she'd be proud he chose a place where life still happened around them, where they weren't alone. The next morning, Eli checked his balance, 114,000 yuan, then called Mr. Wang to put down the deposit. Just sent it, Eli said, watching the transaction complete on the screen. New balance, 110,000. Welcome officially then, Mr. Wang said, pleased. Keys and lease papers tomorrow. You picked a good unit, solid plumbing and faces the sunrise. Eli smiled, looking forward to it. He sat in the Henksai apartment, surrounded by thin walls, a buzzing overhead light and cracked tiles, and felt something strange, the sensation of moving forward, for real this time. He pulled out his phone. Quick movers near me, Dragon City. One listing caught his eye, Collins Moving Company, fast, reliable, same-day availability, a photo of a teal-blue moving truck. He tapped the number, a brisk voice answered. Collins Moving, this is Shulin, how can I help? I need a small move, 2-bedroom apartment, mostly boxes and a few pieces of furniture. Any chance you've got an opening today? A pause, the sound of typing. You're in Henksai, we can have a truck there in under 2 hours. Eli blinked, that fast. Perfect, yeah, that works. He hung up, stood in the middle of the room and looked around. He knocked on Jin's door. We've got movers coming, 2 hours, pack what you don't want strangers touching. A muffled reply, the sound of drawers opening. Eli grabbed a roll of tape. Time to pack the last pieces of their old life. The teal-blue Collins truck arrived exactly when promised. 2 men in matching grey uniforms stepped out, Yuan, tall and wiry with a ponytail tucked under cap, and Luca, shorter and stockier, already cracking his knuckles. You Eli? Yeah, apartment's just up here. They moved with practiced ease, boxes wrapped and stacked. Jin hovered near his bedroom door holding his backpack and a small plastic tub labeled important stuff in smudged marker. Eli checked drawers and corners, making sure nothing was left behind. Yuan lifted the old coffee table with a single smooth motion. Man, this place has seen some history, huh? Yeah, Eli said quietly, looking at the bare walls. Plenty. By the time the last piece was strapped into the truck, the apartment had gone hollow. It exhaled one final time. Eli stood in the doorway for a moment. Ready? Jin asked softly. Yeah. They locked the door behind them, went down the stairs, didn't look back. Blue Fern was already waiting. The moment they set the last box down in the new living room, there was a knock. 3 polite taps. Eli looked at the door, then at Jin, who had already collapsed on the couch halfway to napping. He opened it. An older woman stood in the hallway with short, curly silver hair and deep smile lines. She wore a cardigan with a bright sunflower pin and held out a small covered bowl. Hi there, I'm Mrs. Tang from 3B. Welcome to Blue Fern. Brought you some lotus root soup, nothing fancy but good for settling in. Eli blinked. Oh, thank you, I'm Eli, and that's Jin Mai. He paused, my kid. Mrs. Tang smiled warmly. Welcome, both of you, expect a few more knocks. She gave a wink and shuffled off. Barely a minute passed. A second knock, faster, more impatient. A guy in his 20s stood there in pajama pants, mismatched socks, thick glasses and earbuds. He was blowing a bubble of gum. You got the unit next to mine. Name's Jihao. I work nights, so if you ever hear screaming at 2 a.m., it's probably just my horror podcast. Good to know, Eli said carefully. You game? Jihao held up a spare controller. Not today, but maybe another time. Jihao nodded and walked away. Then came the third knock. Slow, hesitant, a small girl, maybe 8 years old, peeked around the edge of the doorframe. She was holding a crumpled drawing of a dragon in one hand and a juice box in the other. I'm Hana, I live upstairs with my grandpa. He's grumpy. Do you have a cat? No cat, Jin answered from the couch, now fully awake and peering over the cushion. Oh, she said, with mild, dignified disappointment. Then she walked away without further explanation. Eli leaned against the closed door. Jin raised an eyebrow. That's a lot. Yeah, Eli said, looking around at the scattered boxes and bare walls, but maybe a good kind of a lot. Another knock echoed. Jin groaned. Should we just leave the door open? Eli laughed. Might not be a bad idea. Blue Fern was already starting to feel like home. Messy, noisy, welcoming, just the kind of place his mother would have loved. After greeting the neighbors and paying the movers, Eli opened his banking app. Balance 110,000 yuan. Hey Jin, want to go shopping, school stuff and something for your room? From down the hall, yeah, why not? 10 minutes later, they were cutting through Brigand's afternoon traffic on the scooter. The city shimmered in a wash of gold light. Jin's face in the rearview mirror looked relaxed, even a little excited. That was still something to notice. Their first stop was Main Street, Brigand's central strip, where local businesses stood shoulder to shoulder with glass-fronted boutiques and bubble tea stalls. On the far end, the corner pocket sign flickered in the distance like a tired but faithful lighthouse. First stop, Hanri. The luxury shoe store had arrived in the country only recently, but had already claimed the fourth largest market share in just 4 years. Its black and gold signage gleamed on the front of the building. The automatic doors hissed open, and Eli stepped inside. The shift was immediate. Cool air, polished silence, the smell of leather and citrus, floor tiles so bright he could see his own reflection in them, distorted slightly by the scuff on his left sneaker. He hesitated at the threshold. Back in Henksai, stores like this existed only on metro posters and in influencers' unboxing videos. Walking into one had always felt like trying on someone else's life. But he followed Jin inside and pretended his palms weren't sweating. A young saleslady in a sharp black vest approached with a practiced smile. Her eyes took in Eli's faded hoodie and Jin's worn sneakers in a single professional sweep. Her expression was polite skepticism, but something in the way Eli walked made her pause. "Welcome to Hanri, how can I help you today? Could you point us to the teen shoe section?" She led them to a corner of the store where shelves held rows of carefully designed sneakers, streetwear fusions, high tops, a few limited editions with color-shifting fabrics. Most tags hovered between 800 and 2,000 yuan. Eli turned to Jin. "Pick 3, whatever you like, don't worry about the price." Jin's eyes went slightly wide. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, school's a fresh start, might as well look good doing it." Jin moved carefully along the shelves. His fingers brushed a pair of white and navy athletic sneakers with curved soles. Then his gaze settled on a set of charcoal black mid-tops with an embossed dragon near the heel, sharp, quiet, a little dangerous. He glanced back at Eli. Eli nodded. "Go ahead." "I'll try these too," Jin said softly. As Jin sat trying on the shoes, Eli let his eyes wander. He was about to head toward the register when something caught his eye. A pair of storm grey low tops, deep navy detailing, matte black trim, clean and understated but undeniably sharp. He paused. The tag read 1,600 yuan. He had never been someone who bought things for himself, not unless it was on clearance or absolutely necessary. His last decent pair of shoes had been a gift from a cousin 2 years ago, and they were starting to split along the sole. But standing there in Hanri, something shifted. Maybe it was seeing Jin look a little more comfortable in his own skin. Maybe it was the quiet realization that he was allowed to have something nice too. Eli picked up the box in his size. At the counter, the saleslady rang everything up with practiced ease. 3 youth sneakers, 1 adult, that comes to 6,000 yuan even. Eli held his card over the reader, one small moment of hesitation, then he tapped it. Beep, transaction approved. He exhaled, part nerves, part relief, part something close to pride. As they stepped back out into the late afternoon sun, Jin glanced over. "You never buy anything for yourself." Eli shrugged, holding his bag loosely. "Figured I needed one good pair, can't be showing up to parent-teacher meetings in busted sneakers." Jin gave him a rare, crooked smile. "You mean your busted sneakers?" "Exactly." Next, local threads, a narrow clothing store tucked between a tea shop and an old stationery stall. Paper lanterns swung above the door. Inside, wooden floors, a scent of cotton and lavender, wire hangers clicking on a rack near the back. Mr. Pan, the owner, had been there for 23 years and had the weathered face to prove it. Jin moved through the store with quiet deliberateness. He came back holding a slate-grey shirt, a deep green one, a dark maroon flannel, and a navy tee with a small stitched dragon on the sleeve. 2 pairs of trousers, one fitted black, one loose khaki. "Nice picks," Eli said. "That dragon one's very you." Jin smirked faintly, didn't want to pick anything weird this time. Eli found 2 button-down shirts and a pair of charcoal trousers that actually fit properly. They felt clean, fresh. Mr. Pan helped pack everything at the counter, making easy conversation about the neighborhood. Blue Fern, huh, he said, folding the last shirt. You're near Mrs. Zhao then, good people, you'll like it. The total, a little under 1,800 yuan. Back on the street with brown paper bags in hand, Eli glanced sideways at Jin. You've got a whole new start in that bag, you know. Jin gave a small nod, his voice low but steady. Feels like it. They stood for a moment. The evening light slanted across the pavement in long gold stripes. The city moved warmly around them. Hungry, Eli asked. Jin shrugged with a small smirk. I could eat. A few blocks over, Tian's Eatery, fogged-up windows, a faded red sign that read home-style meals since 1999. Inside, worn wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and the sharp scent of garlic and chili oil. A young waiter, barely older than Jin, led them to a table near the back. They ordered one plate of stir-fried beef noodles, a bowl of spicy dumpling soup, and crispy tofu with garlic sauce, cold chrysanthemum tea for Eli, sweetened soy milk for Jin. The food came fast, hot, and full of flavor. They didn't talk much while they ate. They didn't need to. Outside, the street lights began flickering on one by one, the city settling into evening. Eli paid 200 yuan and left a little extra on the table. The waiter looked at it, then up at Eli, and gave a grateful nod. Not bad, huh? Eli said as they stepped back outside. Jin wiped his mouth with his sleeve. Better than delivery noodles. They walked back toward Blue Fern under a slowly darkening sky, their shadows stretching out behind them, their new life quietly, steadily unfolding. One meal, one decision, one step at a time. The next Saturday morning arrived soft and unhurried. Eli and Jin hopped on the scooter and headed down to the corner pocket in the steady warmth of a brigand morning. The familiar sign came into view, slightly crooked, as always, but comforting. Mr. Duan was already behind the counter, restocking dried noodles. Ah, look who the wind brought in. Eli smiled. Got a few things I wanted to go over, business stuff if you've got a minute. Of course, come. In the cramped back office, Eli spread out a folded sheet of numbers. I've been looking at the weekend figures. We're getting more foot traffic from the new gathering hall, especially during meeting hours. I think we should lean into it. A small stand outside with snacks or quick lunches, rice balls, cold drinks, cheap to test. Mr. Duan scratched his chin. We could try it. You think Jin would help with signage? He's good with clean fonts, Eli said, and he has opinions. Mr. Duan chuckled, takes after you. Meanwhile, Jin had drifted toward the refrigerated section, where Mayan was arranging fruit yogurt cups in neat rows. She glanced over and gave a nod. New shoes, she said, noticing the navy hand repair on his feet. Yeah, got them yesterday. They look expensive. They were. Mayan smirked, so you're rich now. Not even close, Jin said, just lucky. She opened a yogurt and offered him one. Welcome to Briggan. He accepted it, sat down on the crate stack beside her. They didn't say much at first, just sat there under the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Eventually Mayan said, I heard you're starting at Graythite. Jin nodded, yeah. It's not the worst school. Some kids suck, but the art teacher gives out snacks if you pretend to care about your project. Jin raised an eyebrow, good to know. They both took a bite of yogurt at the same time. It wasn't exactly friendship, but it was something, a start. Back in the office, Mr. Duan leaned back and looked at Eli with quiet appreciation. You've got good ideas, Eli. The community likes you. You're not like the usual city types. You actually care about this place. Eli glanced at the faded photo on the desk, Mr. Duan in shorts and a white top, standing in front of the same store holding a crate of apples, 20 years younger, same eyes. I'm just trying to keep up, Eli said. Mr. Duan nodded slowly. Well, you're doing more than that. By noon, the store was in full Saturday swing. Kids ran past the shelves. Old women haggled over mushrooms. The air smelled faintly of oranges and soy sauce. Eli stepped out front and saw Jin and Mayan sitting together on the crates, both eating yogurt, neither saying much but neither walking away either. He smiled to himself. This was why they moved. For school, for people, for rhythm. For days like this. It was still Saturday. The corner pocket hummed with its usual life, customers drifting in and out, Jin and Mayan restocking instant noodles near the front, Mr. Duan counting receipts with one eye on the candy rack in case any child got too bold. Then the bell above the door jingled. Polished leather shoes clicked against the old tile. Everything slowed just slightly. Eli looked up. Mr. Feng. Sleek dark blazer, hair swept back precisely, the same thin smile that never quite reached his eyes. He walked in the way he always did, like the floor had been installed for his benefit. Mr. Juan stiffened behind the counter. Feng, he said, polite, guarded. Ah, Mr. Feng said, spreading his arms slightly. So nostalgic, this store still smells the same. He let a pause hang in the air. Soy sauce and mildew. Eli straightened up but kept his voice even. Anything we can help you with? Mr. Feng's eyes slid to him, a flicker of interest. You must be the new partner I've been hearing about, the young man with the big ideas. Eli offered a tight nod. That's me. Mr. Feng chuckled, the sound landing hollow. I do love ambition, it's such a temporary thing. He drifted toward the pickled radish display, tapped one of the jars idly with a knuckle. I just came to offer a reminder to my old friend Duan, he said, a courtesy. Mr. Duan's jaw tightened, he said nothing. Mr. Feng turned fully to face them, smile widening slightly. Supermartex opens this Monday. He let the words sit. Right down the block, grand opening deals, full marketing rollout, and of course air conditioning. Mr. Duan gave a hard grunt. We're aware. Of course you are, Feng said. I just didn't want you caught off guard. It's always better to know when the tide is coming in. He paused and turned to Eli. I hear you've put real effort into this place. That's commendable, truly, but you know how it goes. Some tides you can't stop, some waves wash everything clean. He clapped his hands softly, like the matter was already decided. That's all, just a neighborly visit. And with a smile too white and a goodbye too smooth, he turned and walked out. The door chimed, the store fell quiet. Jin looked up from the noodle aisle, wide-eyed. Mayan scowled in the direction Mr. Feng had gone. Mr. Duan let out a slow, controlled breath. Snake in a suit. Eli said nothing. But behind the counter, out of sight, his fists were clenched. Supermartex was opening on Monday. And the corner pocket, their cracked tile flickering sign, soy sauce and community corner pocket, was about to face the real fight. The city doesn't wait for you to be ready, it just keeps moving. The question is whether you move with it or get left behind.